right, so let's get things started now. The Winston-Salem Foundation is gearing up for their annual community meeting. It's just 2 weeks away. The Triad residents will fill the Benton Convention Center, and they'll get to hear from an expert in economic and social policy that will help our community along its racial equity journey.
Some very important topics that we'll be discussing. So this morning we'd like to say good morning to Heather McGhee. She is the author of the New York Times bestseller, Some of Us, What Racism Costs Everyone and How We Can Prosper Together. She is also the Winston-Salem Foundation's keynote speaker as well this morning. Thank you so much for being with us.
I'm so glad to be with you.
Well, we first have to ask you, this sounds like something that every community probably needs to tackle at some point in those conversations that they're having. But we have to ask you first, when did you realize that writing was a passion of yours, and what made you want to discuss and tackle this topic?
Well, you know, I grew up on the south side of Chicago in the 1980s, and I was a huge reader when I was a kid, and I used to come home and write stories in my notebook, stories about dragons and witches and all of that, like, you know, most kids. But at the same time, I was really concerned, even as a teenager and then as a college student, about what was going on in our economy. I saw what happened when the factories were closing. It affected my family, the job losses, the feeling that the middle class was shrinking. And so instead of becoming a, fiction writer and, becoming like the next Harry Potter author, I decided that I needed to go to law school and I needed to study economics. And that was what I did for nearly 20 years. I wasn't writing, I was testifying in Congress and looking at issues like the rising cost of college and jobs that don't pay enough and unaffordable health care.
And that kind of sets you up for writing the book, The Sum of Us. Talk about that journey. How did your experience early on prepare you to write this book?
So for 20 years, I was working doing research and statistical analysis, tackling America's biggest economic problems. And then I realized in 2017 that what I was doing wasn't enough. It wasn't that we didn't have solutions to the big economic problems, is that we couldn't seem to come together to fight for them and win. And so I quit my job running a big think tank and I hit the road, and I ended up traveling all across the country, including to North Carolina, California, Maine, Mississippi. And it was really the journey that would lead me to write The Sum of Us. And what I discovered was that so often the solutions to our problems are right there, but it's old stories, lies and distrust, this way in which we tend to not want to come together to recognize that there are common solutions to our common problems that are holding us back. And so in that way, I discovered that racism in our politics and our policymaking isn't just a black-white issue. It's not a zero sum. It actually has a quantifiable economic cost for all of us.
And Heather, we know that your research actually helped you to sort of identify this term solidarity dividend as well. And on top of that, I want you to talk about the play on words that you did here with the title, The Sum of Us, because sum is spelled S-U-M.
That's right. That's right. So what we discovered in the research is that we're really being held back by this zero-sum story, right? A zero-sum game is not like a normal sports game where everybody keeps scoring points. A zero-sum game is one in which if one team scores a point, the other team loses a point. And it's really that story that is so often a kind of common worldview in the US. It's a sense that if one group is getting ahead, then that must be at the expense of others. And it's a racialized story. There's a dominant worldview in the US that says that progress for people of color has to come at white folks' expense. But of course, we know that's not true. The economics says that's not true at all. In fact, we all do better when we all do better. And yet there's still that story that holds us back from supporting the kinds of solutions that we all need. And so given that zero-sum lie that's holding us back, what I began to focus on was, well, what if people reject the zero-sum lie? Do they end up winning things and having real gains, cleaner air, higher wages, better funded schools when they can come together across lines of race? And it turns out that they can. And that's what I began to term the solidarity dividend, the idea of real gains that can be unlocked, but only through cross-racial solidarity, seeing each other struggle in one another and fighting together for the things that all of our families need.
Heather, I really like how you presented that. It's a very interesting topic. It's a very complicated topic to discuss. What are some of the kind of subtopics that you're looking forward to discussing during the meeting?
Yeah, so the central metaphor at the heart of the Sum of Us is the story of what happened to many of the country's nearly 2,000 lavishly funded grand resort style public swimming pools. And as we know, many of those swimming pools that were public throughout the 20th century were segregated. And once desegregation orders came, many towns and cities decided to drain their public pools rather than integrate them. So, of course, that meant that everybody lost out due to that racism. So I take the story of the drained pool and use it as kind of a metaphor to describe the drained pool politics behind lots of the things that everybody is losing out on now, like the fact that the cost of public college is way out of reach for most members of the public. And we have $2 trillion in student loan debt because we've drained the pool of public resources that used to make college virtually free for all students. I talk about healthcare and how the high cost of healthcare is holding back so many families because we never filled in the public pool of public healthcare in the first place in this country. And we stand alone in the US by not having a real guarantee of universal healthcare. So we talk about jobs and unions and wages. We talk about healthcare and poverty, all the things that most families are struggling with. And the thing about the Sum of Us and my talk in Winston-Salem is that it's going to be hopeful and full of solutions.
Heather, I think that was said beautifully, especially with the metaphor that so many of us have heard those stories about those public pools, and now bringing it into other realms is maybe going to push the conversation forward. Thank you again for joining us. And of course, you